All right, guys, what's going on? It's Jack, and welcome back to another video. And today's topic of discussion is whether or not you think, you, the community, you, the player, think that if the faction system should be removed or not, right? So I've seen a lot of different debates online in different videos, comment sections, and even on Twitter or X or whatnot, basically on social media about the faction system. And on top of that, there's also another debate going on as to whether Splitgate 1 was indeed better than Splitgate 2. And it really depends on how you look at it, because from a technical standpoint, you know, you've got the controls in Splitgate 2 that are tighter and all that kind of stuff, right? You know, it's a game that has a lot more developers and things like that. So there's definitely some pros to that. But then you've got the game that is at its purest point, like it's pure Splitgate, right? In terms of the way the portals are used and the way the map design works and stuff like that, according to what I've read from a few comments that have been made by, you know, the people that have been playing Splitgate since the original, whether they were serious or they were just dedicated people. So it really depends on your point of view, and that is where the factions come in, right? So should the faction system be removed, and why? So I even was asked in one of my more recent streams by somebody, and I'm paraphrasing here, so they basically asked me, well, Jack, why do you think these developers lately, when it comes to first-person shooters, why in the world do they seem to have a hard-on for adding, you know, hero abilities and factions into their game? And my answer was, basically, it's basically a form of a participation trophy, right? It rewards the lesser skilled players with an in-game ability that they otherwise wouldn't get if it was in the form of, like, let's say, a streak, right? Because if you think about it, factions and their abilities, whether they're passive abilities as well as their ultimate and stuff like that, they're kind of like their own form of streaks, but they're earned in a countdown sense, right? Where there's like a countdown timer as opposed to a certain amount of points accumulated. I, for one, would be a lot more open with a system to where you would have to get a certain amount of points. Now, deaths would not stop this, but like once you accumulated a certain amount of points, all of a sudden, bam, you've earned your ability, right? Your faction ability, right? But basically, not everybody is going to agree with that. But I like that. I like that system better than just a countdown clock, because, you know, it allows the player, no matter what their skill level is, to actually earn their ability, as opposed by contributing to the team and providing points, as opposed to something that they can just wait for and still get no matter what, right? So they don't have to contribute to objectives to accumulate points even faster. They can just hang back, or they can just whatever. But obviously, the more you contribute, the more points you accumulate faster, so therefore you get your ability faster. Now, in the current system, that is true, but at the same time, again, when something isn't truly earned because you're still on a countdown clock, you're just decelerating that clock faster when you're performing better. Again, if something is guaranteed, it's not as satisfactory, and to me, that's still a participation trophy. And I really don't like that kind of mindset. I'd rather have it to where everybody pretty much you know, earns their ability. Now, this was a hot topic back when I was covering X Defiant, because about the faction abilities in that game, I would have rather have it be like I just described, to where you would accumulate a certain amount of points. Even if you died, it wouldn't reset or anything like that. But once you've accumulated amount of points, whether it's by taking the OBJ, kills, assists, whatever, right? In any way that you're contributing to your team, no matter what it is, and you're accumulating points, that, you know, that would count towards, you know, towards you earning your ability. But you know, when it's on a countdown, you know, you're going to earn it no matter what. So you can contribute the least or not contribute anything at all, and you can still get your ability once or twice a match. And I don't like that, you know, because getting that ability that once or twice can actually make a difference, not just for yourself as a player, but for your team. And I'd rather have the person earn that to get that ability, as opposed to something that's just given regardless of their skill, right? The more you put into something, the more you should get out of it. So the person that's able to slightly contribute a little bit more, like slightly, even if it's just by a few hundred, I think they should be slightly more rewarded. Kind of like, you know, the more hours you put into work, the more money you make, right? So same kind of concept here. Now, I know this isn't work. I know it's a video game, but at the same time, when you're given these really powerful abilities that can make a big difference for yourself or for your team, especially if you're on the other end of a player who is a better player, but, you know, some of these abilities, when it comes to, you know, whatever they are, they really can't be countered, you know, depending on, you know, the particular situation. Now, thankfully, none of them that I could think of are, you know, quote unquote lethal, like score streaks or whatnot. However, a wall hacking ability to where the entire team can see you is pretty damn powerful, and people are pretty much spamming that shit left and right, no matter what their skill level is. So again, I've already mentioned on how that could be nerfed, but at the same time, I think it's even more important to stop and think and consider how you would earn something like that, right? And I should have actually mentioned this in my survey video, but I didn't. But yeah, I think if it were to be reworked, I think we'd be in a better spot if you were to include it. Now, at the same time, I am all about removing the faction system. Leave the weapons and the perks the way they are, but removing the faction system, I certainly wouldn't mind. I don't mind a game that has more emphasis on gunplay. Now, obviously, the majority of the emphasis of this game still remains to be gunplay, but they just added that third layer, where you got your first layer, the gunplay, the second layer, the portals, and then that third layer is the factions. Now, a lot of people, especially for lovers of the OG Splitgate 1, would say that the factions are not really necessary. Some people are like, I don't really care. They're not really necessary. I could do without them, but again, it's not just about what I think and what my mindset is. I'm wondering what the mindset of you, the person that's watching this video, thinks, regardless of whatever skill level, you are, that doesn't matter. I want to know your opinion in terms of what I just mentioned in terms of the faction system. And if you like it, why keep it? And if you can change it, what would you change about it? And if you were to remove it, why do you think it should be removed? You know what I mean? I personally think this game certainly has enough going for it in order to make it happen, without the factions. However, one thing you can do, though, that would be kind of interesting is maybe perhaps depending on whatever game mode and map. And again, this is just something I'm throwing out there. Again, not something that I'm particularly fond of, but at the same time, it could work. And that's take a teeny weeny bit of that Halo 3 DNA and inject it into this game. And what I mean is put them in the place of power weapons, right? So let's say, you've got your power weapons on the map and stuff like that. Some people love them, some people hate them, but for the most part, they make the biggest difference, right? You've got your power weapons, right? Which means you have to be there by the time the power weapon starts. So you got to be there. You got to earn it by actually going there and picking it up when nobody else will, by memorizing when it's going to respawn, where it's going to respawn at, and all that kind of stuff. Well, what if you had something similar to that with like some of these abilities, right? So in the form of power weapons, right? I mean, you would have to earn them by going out of your way in order to pick them up whenever they spawn at a certain area part of the map. So that is earnable because you're remembering it. You're going to go over there, so and at the same time, you're probably putting yourself at risk in order to get it. Big risk, big reward, so that would be something that I would kind of be open to as well. I personally, believe it or not, because of how I play, but obviously that can change, is I like everything to be at my control as opposed to having going out there to get it. But when it comes to special abilities like this, putting a couple of them here and there out as in the same way the power weapons are used in this game, I think would be something that could actually fit in pretty well, and it would add another layer of technicality to the game. And obviously the better players are going to know this, you're going to take full advantage, and then the lesser skilled players obviously are going to have to learn that, hey, this ability is going to spawn here. And even though this game has quote unquote loose skill-based matchmaking, according to the words of the devs themselves, I still see a decent amount of people that are not picking up power weapons and that are just running around them and not picking them up. Sometimes I'll pick them up depending on whichever one it is and whichever map it is. And then sometimes I'll completely completely ignore them, believe it or not. But again, it all depends on preference and which map it is, et cetera, et cetera. So, but you can't go wrong with picking up power weapons. They're definitely going to give you an advantage where in other situations they really wouldn't. So yeah, I would say, I'm open to change, but if they were to remove it completely, I certainly wouldn't be against it. And, gunplay comes first. And I think gunplay would be a bigger factor if the factions were to be released, were to be, removed from the game. But with that being said, though, it's not just about me. It's not just about my opinions and my mindset. It's about overall what the community wants. So I want to know in the comment section, do you agree? Do you disagree? What other ideas would you have to make the faction system better? And again, the devs are watching, so let it be known, because it has been a topic of discussion in some in some instances that we might get a removal of the factions? And do you think that this would be the right way to go? Or do you think that there's a simple tweak that needs to be made? Or do you think the factions are fine the way they are? And this is just too big of a topic that shouldn't be a big topic. So I'd like to know where you stand on this. So with that being said, guys, I'd like to thank everybody for taking the time to watch and or listen. I hope you enjoyed today's video, and I'll catch you guys on the next one.